Thanks for tuning in, online, offline, wherever you are. You're watching What's Trending Live from Internet Week New York. It's our anniversary show, if you didn't know that already. So it's a very exciting time. And Internet Week New York is all about bringing together the brightest minds of the webs, the thought leaders, and celebrating the best the web has to offer. And the two people I have here today definitely represent that, to say the least. We have from Reddit, the social news site on the web, which in 2011, I'm gonna throw out some facts, boasted over 2 billion page views and over 34 million unique visitors. That's incredible. Alexis Ohanian. Joining him is my favorite Wonderkin CEO and founder of Tumblr, which now hosts more than 42 million blogs. Tumblr is now valued at $800 million and boasts investors like Sir Richard Branson, David Karp.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you too for being here. I really appreciate it. Because all we do is talk on Facebook and Twitter, never in person.
It's nice to do this in real life.
It is nice to do this in real life. Why is it important to have a week like Internet Week where we celebrate tech and innovation in a city?
Well, in my life, it should be Internet Year. So I guess it's nice to take a special week out of that year to actually really say, hey, Internet, it's awesome. And you know, there's so many great people doing fabulous things here in New York City that I love to be both here in New York and celebrating the Internet because there's just so much great going on.
Do you feel like initiatives like this have really helped grow the innovation and startup community in New York, David?
Absolutely. I mean, the trick is, we get people like you here covering all the amazing stuff that's going on in the city, and we have a chance to come out and connect with the people in the community that we don't usually have the chance to meet or hang out with. It's great. I mean, so important.
So it's amazing to see how much Reddit and both Tumblr have grown really over the year. I met you when you had just sold to Condé Nast, and I feel like there was just recently another new bump for you guys.
Yes, basically once the founders, Steve and I, left our full-time positions, growth just took off. So whether that's correlation or causation, I'll leave to you, but I'm very proud to be on the board of Reddit now, and in the last couple of years, we've seen tremendous growth. Lots of people sharing cat photos, causing political change in Washington, and people just really taking advantage of this platform as a place to go to share links and
You
have
really
good
say it's
discussions.
when Dig kind of teetered off, that's really when Reddit came to life.
There was, Reddit had always been alive. It had always been growing, but yes, certainly, Dig version 4 was a tremendous boon for Reddit in the way of traffic, but I've been thrilled with the way the team handled it and continues growing.
And Tumblr, why do you think this year has been such a big year for you?
So this is one of the first years we've seen, last year we saw what to us looked like real mainstream adoption in the US for the first time. Now for the first time we're seeing that same sort of traction overseas. So as an example, Brazil, which wasn't even in our top 10, was a tiny, tiny little sliver of our traffic. In 6 months, went on to become 12% of all of our traffic, doing several billion impressions a month. So
wow.
That kind of stuff that we see now happening all over the world and across Europe, certainly in Latin America, that's just exciting, surprising, and teaching us a whole lot about those new communities.
How are you two, both of your platforms, working with traditional media, or are you just trying to replace it?
Definitely not trying to. I mean, look.
No.
Traditional media, I think, is some of the most entertaining, engaging. Look, I've seen Avengers 3 times now. I think traditional media is extraordinary, and there are creators in that industry that are doing unbelievable stuff. Who are, to be honest, the ones who are figuring out how to harness platforms like Tumblr and Reddit, I think, better than we have a vision for. So a lot of what our team spends time doing is meeting with these brands and publishers and taking lots of notes on all of the stuff that they're trying, the stuff that they're doing that's working, and trying to relay that to other people in the industry.
Yeah, we've always had actually a really great relationship with traditional media because Reddit is a collection of links to content sources. So we would send them boatloads of traffic, and in some of the best cases, actual community members of Reddit build subreddits around wonderful media properties. So if any of you watch Game of Thrones, yes, the Game of Thrones subreddit is a fabulous community of users talking about this wonderful media content 24/7.
Yeah, and now you have AMAs, these Ask Me Anything, a ton of celebs are getting into that.
Yeah.
What celeb really was that turning point where everyone else wanted to do it?
Well, Woody Harrelson was the best example for how not to do an Ask Me Anything interview. Probably one of the best, and I know he's going to be at the Webbies, is Louis C.K. Now, I'm also a shameless fan. He just did a second AMA a little while back, but his first one was timed so brilliantly because he announced that he was giving away his latest comedy special for $5, DRM free, to anyone who just wanted to pay him and his team. how much did Louis C.K. make in an age of piracy? $1 million in a week. And that was cash money directly to him that he spent on his team.
He's like a rapper, Cash Money?
And, well, I guess it was PayPal money, but eventually became cash. And it was just a great example of using the technology and using the platforms that are available to actually work with your customers, work with your fans.
What is working on Tumblr? Like, give us some case studies of traditional companies or individuals who are really making that community work for them.
So a lot of the stuff that gets us the most excited, in our network is people who go really in depth in one particular corner of one community. So as an example, one example I used earlier that I thought was really appropriate for Internet Week was this blog humansofnewyork.tumblr, which is just profiles of really bizarre, fascinating, really interesting New Yorkers where they take these gorgeous portraits. The author behind it shows up, takes these beautiful portraits, sometimes just runs into interesting people on the street and has either small captions that go along with them, a quote or something that kind of gives context to this person or this meeting, or sometimes long essays, big profiles on these people like, you probably won't know this as a non-New Yorker, but Black Wolf the Dragon Master, our local Dragon Master that lives in Central Park and is this spectacular character that most people uptown have run into at some point. So people like just like these phenomenal characters beyond in a city like New York or inside a creative community. Brands doing something similar. One example that I just love from this year was Hunger Games, Lionsgate setting up a promotional blog for the Hunger Games that rather than just hungergames.tumblr.com like these guys do on every other network out there, set up capitalcouture.tumblr.com, which was getting really in depth into the fashion of the world of the Hunger Games. So people who really appreciate the world of the Hunger Games now had an opportunity to really explore a part of, a view into this world that they didn't get out of the books, at the same depth that they didn't have access to in the trailers or anywhere else on the web. And the fashion community on Tumblr really resonated with the fashion community that maybe wasn't clued into the Hunger Games yet, but was all of a sudden drawn to this brilliant creative work that those guys were putting out there. So stuff like that, yeah.
I'm not very adventurous in fashion, but there is no way I'm going to try that fire dress thing that she was wearing.
Fire dress is pretty cool.
Wow, you guys are so
That's dangerous.
Well, tell me the do's and don'ts of building community on both of your platforms. What do you tell people in terms of engaging?
For some reason, when people get on the internet, they forget that they're working with other people, and they stop acting like a human would act in a normal human setting. And so when people come in there and try to either shamelessly promote what they're working on or just act like marketers, not like human beings, they're probably going to fail. And in the infamous Woody Harrelson episode, you had someone coming on expecting an interview that was probably more like what they were used to on Jay Leno, and actually getting something that was real, that was expecting real human answers, and that's sort of what you have to deal with. But the payoffs are huge.
Shouldn't that be refreshing when a celebrity does that?
It wasn't. I mean, in the instances where we even had Molly Ringwald come on and do an awesome Ask Me Anything interview. So when these celebrities get it, like I said, the payoffs are huge.
It's refreshing for them, right? I mean, it's a chance to really be themselves, yeah.
And tell me, David,
on Tumblr,
what do you tell people to make things
it's
work?
Creative media that wins. The most creative people, the most innovative people who show up and, look, we had a whole new form of photography called cinemagraphs invented on Tumblr by one of our creators, and that stuff, has become a movement outside of just our network. People who show up with new approaches to creation, whole new forms of media, whole new little micro communities or interests to explore. Those are the people who really succeed in Tumblr, and in a lot of ways, it's a real meritocracy. You don't need to have an established, you can really benefit from an established brand if you're coming in there with that, but the people who really win are the people who show up with the most compelling, interesting stuff to check out.
So the big news in the tech world, as everyone might know right now, is the Facebook IPO, and I couldn't have two of the biggest tech leaders here on stage without asking them about it. And I know, Alexis, you've been very outspoken about CISPA and that you're not investing in Facebook.
I'm not.
So tell us why.
Well, Facebook has made some privacy decisions that I think have users very, very worried, including myself. So there are things like signing on to bad legislation like CISPA. Google it, read about it. And
what is
basically,
CISPA? Yeah.
It basically circumvents due process in a way when the government wants to get access to your private data on Facebook because they believe that there is a potential cyber threat. Now that's very important. We need to have effective ways for people to share information about cybersecurity, but we need to do so in a way that respects due process, not in a way that simply leaves it up to the company about whether or not they should quickly hand over whatever it is that someone may want. And so my concern from an investment standpoint is that in the long term, if Facebook continues to make bad decisions about user experience, about disrespecting privacy, whether it's in legislation they sign or simply in the product they build, by access they give to developers or just features they put on the site, you have the potential for this to become something else like the social networking fads of yesteryear. The value of a site that is community driven is in the community. You know, the reason we could open source Reddit was because the technology wasn't the valuable part, the community was. And my concern is if Facebook continues to make bad decisions for the community, those could mean bad things for the business.
Well, some might say Zuckerberg waited. He was actually very strategic about it. Look at Zynga, Groupon that went IPO, and now they're in the dump. So maybe he's doing this properly. What are your thoughts? Are you pro-IPO? Are you going to be a supporter of this?
I mean, look, so Alexis nailed some points on Facebook's policies that are, you know, whether or not they're troubling today or things that we need to hold them very accountable for. And you know, Facebook needs to be held to, I think, a higher standard than anybody in this industry. I'll say on the IPO, you know, Facebook is the poster child of, you know, the poster success story for an internet business today. And I think everybody in this industry should be rooting for them to prove that the internet can generate $100 billion businesses and that they can have a very successful IPO and, you know, really pay off for all of those investors and supporters. So I'm absolutely rooting for them. And
so we're not overvaluing any of these companies.
They built a really meaningful business and they have, you know, achieved a scale that like nothing that's ever existed before. So.
Now, David, moving on to your site, and you recently added ads, which was a big deal, announced it at the Ad Age conference. Why was it? 2 years ago you said, no, I don't like ads.
So I mean, the big thing for us was, so first of all, what I really said no to, what we had the strongest reaction to, was the state of most digital advertising today, which I think is very uninspiring. I think most of the advertisements that you see on Google and Facebook are, not that they're, you know, bad or even ineffective, I'd say they're actually tremendously effective in a particular category, which is converting, right? When it's an actionable thing, when you're looking for a particular camera, when you're looking for, you know, cheap tickets to something, that, you know, a targeted Facebook ad, that AdWords ad is brilliantly effective at driving traffic. What the internet is really bad at today, and I think most advertisers agree with this, and as we talk to them more and more, they seem to agree with this, so there are very few places for advertisers to tell stories, for them to actually create the compelling advertising. You know, if any of you guys are following Mad Men right now, there's like creative agencies where those guys are sitting around trying to figure out how to, you know, how Kodak can tell a story that really connects with future customers, builds intent rather than just harvests intent. And I would say there's a very small handful of places where brands and advertisers and marketers can do that today. We've seen, without any help from us, we've seen marketers show up and have that success on Tumblr. What these first products are basically us packaging those features, packaging that success we've seen other advertisers have and making that more accessible to more people.
All right, so this is almost done, but I wanted to ask you both, because you both also invest in startups and support other innovators in this space. So with Behance and then also with Circa, the new app, what do you look for when you're going to invest in another startup?
This was something I said I would never ever get into. I thought it was so strange that entrepreneurs, you know, it's like founders start these things and then go on to become investors. That when I was first being introduced to this industry, that seemed like a normal track for a lot of people. And I thought, why would you do that? You have a chance to like run something. If you can like, actually be building the things, why wouldn't you want to do that? Now, having angel invested in 3 companies I'm very excited about, you know, you realize when you're in the fortunate position of being able to support your friends, support other people who are inspiring you in the community, you can't imagine doing anything else. It's like it's the greatest thing in the world, rather than, you know, leaving that money to JP Morgan or something to support our buddies. Yeah.
There is startup karma, and it's the people we usually invest in, and we know people took chances on us, and you know, having launched a couple of companies and having invested in about 50 now, it's great because you get all the upside. You get to feel really good about successes, but you don't have to lose sleep over it like you would as a founder. So it's a great scenario for everyone involved, and it means that founders actually get to take money from people like us, not suits who have to, you know, go through all these shenanigans. They get it from friends, and they get it from people who just want to help.
Lastly, today we talked about internet security, engaging community, the internet bubble. What trends are we going to be talking about at Internet Week New York next year?
Creative brand advertising.
Okay.
Digital creative brand. A little more interesting. What's going on these days?
That's good.
Putting you on the spot.
Oh, geez. I hope it's another version of Pinterest for blank. I don't know, mobile. That's everyone's answer. I'll tell you what excites me is I want to see new ways for the internet to enable us to get better access to our government and the things that go on there. Because we have these devices in our hands, we're so well connected now, and what we saw with SopaPeep and what we've seen since is that brilliant people who come up with great ideas are on a level playing field. And so whether you're a photographer that no one's ever heard of, or whether you're an activist that is starting a cause, you're on the same playing field as everyone else online.
That's true. So actually the big one, and I know a lot of people who are thinking really hard about this right now, is how to disrupt the state of kind of campaign financing we have in the US, which seems undisruptible, and the one force that's probably going to be able to make a dent in that is social media. So hopefully you see like the richest people being able to like win elections right now being offset by social media's ability to rally big communities of people who are voting age now. So.
Well, David and Alexis, thank you so much for sharing your insight on the future of the web today. Thank you very much. And stick around, everyone here and online watching, because coming up we have YouTube stars Daily Grace, Buck Hollywood, and Hannah Hart. Stay tuned.